So this evening, Be'ez Hashem, we're learning the Shiur Dvar Malchus of the Rabbi from Parshas Shabbos Parshas Vayeitzei, Shnas Toshe Non Vei. And as we've had on several occasions already, the Kriyas in that year, non-based, was very similar, if not exactly similar, to the Kriyas that we have now. In other words, that Shabbos Parshas Vayeitzei was Tes Kislev, just like it is by us, and Moitzoi Shabbos was the Yom HaGeula of the Mitzvah Rebbe. So the Moitzoi Shabbos is like the connecting point between the going out of the Yortzeit and moving straight into the Yom HaGeula. And as is well known, that the Mitzvah Rebbe's Geula was exactly a year before his Tova, or his Passover. So that the first Yud Kislev came out. The first Yud Kislev was the day after his Istokes. So therefore, the first Yud Kislev was, how they call it, low key, very. But after that, it moved into what you might call the gear. It moved into the and gradually, as the years went past, it took on and in some ways, the Rabbeim related to it not all that less than Yud Kislev. A Yud Kislev always has a certain Maila Miuchedes, being as it is Rosh Hashanah, Luxidas, but Tes Kislev nonetheless. So, and we're learning tonight in the Beis Knesset Tzedek, and tonight is Thursday night, where the Ches Kislev Tovshin Pei. So, as has been customary over the last few shurim, what I'm going to try and do is, since we already dealt with the beginning of the Sikhas a few times, I'll try as much as I can to sum up the main message at the beginning of the Sikha, and then it will come in at a certain point, Be'ez Hashem, in the Hemshech Teichen Hainyonim, in order that we should try and cover the latter part of the Sikha and get the message from that. So, what the Rebbe begins the Sikha with the well-known fact that the Mitzvah Rebbe has a very unusual aspect to his Yortzeit, in that his Yortzeit occurs on the same day he was born. In other words, he was also born on Tes Kislev, and he was mistalik in Oilam but Tes Kislev. Now it's brought down in Maimori, I had said Maimori Hamedrash, Maimori Razal, that this is a very great form of perfection. Therefore, there's a medrash which says that a Kodesh Baruch Hu, by tzaddikim, and before tzaddikim gedolim, a Kodesh Baruch Hu Yoshev, he literally pays careful attention. So I try to say Hashem sits, but he pays very careful attention. And he is Mamali, the Yameya Tzadikim, Miyom El Yom Chodesh L'Chodesh. In other words, that Hashem pays special attention to great Tzadikim, and he fulfills in such a way that it works out by the month. The month that they came into the world, that's how they fulfill their whole life, and the same day of the month, and so on. Yeah, and that fulfills their, and that's appropriate. And that's appropriate to what's written in Parshas Mishpatim in Shmois, where Hashem promises in the singular, he promises to every Yid that as Mispar Yomelcha Amali, I will literally fill up very good. I will make full and perfect the number of your days. That's like a promise. It occurs in the Torah. So the Rebbe says that we don't find that by all of tzaddikim. We find it by very rare and special tzaddikim. And we're going to have in a minute that the Gemara says that by all the in Masechta Rosh Hashanah, the Gemara says that the three forefathers, that there's only three people which are called forefathers, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. They were born and they were nifta on the same day. And therefore the Gemara learns that from different psukim. Because the question is, where we know that from, and so the Gemara is Medaik, all series of sons of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, they were the same. They passed away, or they were born and passed away on the same day. Yeah. And then we find by Moshe Rabbeinu, the Gemara says clearly in the Hemshech Inyanim over there, also it's brought down that Moshe Rabbeinu was born on Zion Order, and he's also, his Yotite is Zion Order. So Moshe Rabbeinu also, being as he is, like the Roya Naaman had it called the Reya Mehemna of the whole Jewish people, then he also had that tremendous perfection. So the diuk, or the question that the Rebbe deals somewhat in detail, what I'm just saying it in brief, is, what is so special about these tzaddikim, and what does that indicate to us that they were born and they were mistalik on the same day, and that the Mishnah, the Medrash, calls it that the Eibashter pays very special attention and he fulfills their days. You follow me? He enriches and fulfills all of their days. So the question is, Mahu Abiyuv is it? What's the din in such a So just very bekitzer, the Rebbe deals with it at quite a bit of length. However, the main point is, to ask yourself the question, what's with all the other great tzaddikim, that they weren't necessarily like that. They didn't necessarily pass away on the same day that they were born. And yet they were obviously great. The father of the Middle Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe, he is the founder of the whole Shittas Achsidus, Chulu, Ba'od. As he wasn't born and passed away on the same day. So the Rebbe said we have to say that they have kolol, they included, entwined in certain things that they did. This perfection of the world, they didn't have that perfection, mamish papuyo, because they had other things, and there were other reasons that Hashem had why He wanted very specifically. But as it were, like in a higher level, they also had that. They had that same inyan, what it represents. Just so for reasons known to Hashem, He didn't actually get out physically that way. The whole purpose of Vayeitzei Hashem and the whole purpose of a yid in this world, says the Rabbi, is that you got to make the body and the soul in somehow interrelate in a real way. In other words, that you can't be a dichotomy. You can't be that you have an enemy type entity called your body, and you have your soul, which declares war the whole time against your body. Now we can imagine, and perhaps a lot of people spend a lot of time being in like a state like that, but that's not the ultimate perfection. The ultimate perfection is to bring to a situation where your ruchnias and the gashmias of your life, as it were, unite together, and the neshama is able to shine over and through the body, not be like a victim of a Helen Vasa that the body makes. And even higher than that, says the Rabbi, that you bring them to, they become one shleimas, and they become one perfection, and that the physical things of this person are just like an expression of his neshama. That he and his neshama, he meaning his physical being, and his neshama all become one perfect entity. So the Rebbe says if somebody reaches that type of level, then the expression of his neshama and is in the physical in a way that they're absolutely united. Well, that means that every detail in his physical life is just another expression and another oiven of Gilui Nishmosai. His neshama reveals itself. So the Rebbe says, Im Kain, that's what the Medrash means. Shalom. That's what the Medrash means, that Hashem sits and He literally perfects and He brings to a shleimus the days of the tzaddikim, that the body is just like a vehicle for expressing what the neshama wants. So the ultimate perfection of that union is that everything sort of fits together. Everything comes together. And whenever He came into the world, that's when He leaves, because that's like a perfect round figure, how they call it. It's like an Indian of shleimus in Mizpor. And that's what the Parshas says, is Mizpor Yomecha Amali, and that's exactly the Lashon of the Medrash. So we see that that's like a perfection, that the number of your days is full. And the Medrash means that when you came in, that's when you leave. Or that's only by somebody that his body and his soul are not just getting on, but they've become one absolute unity, and that the body is just not only just a kli, it's like an ava of the neshama. It just does whatever the neshama does. The body just automatically follow. And as is well known, this is my addition, this is not from the river, but as is well known, that the Rebbe Rashab had a the Rebbe Rashab had a Yechidas with his father, the Rebbe Maharaj, just before his bar mitzvah, and he said that to what should he aim? What what is the aiming etiquette? What is the matara? You know, what are we shooting for? You know, what am I supposed to do? It was just before the bar mitzvah. So the Rebbe Marash said to the Rebbe Rashab that he has to learn the Shulchan Aruch, Chaim. Well, he'd already done that anyway, but he said you have to learn the Shulchan Aruch, Chaim, in a way that all of your limbs will automatically do what is written there. Yeah, that they will just do it without you necessarily having to tell them. You know, you just become involved in that, and your body will just do anyway what the neshama would require of it, because that's what's written in Shulchan Aruch. So I was once by the Rebbe. I was actually there when the Rebbe said L'choira. That's a pretty tremendous. But there's a whole story. You guys are familiar with the story. Tell her the story. Yeah, the once. Trouble is we get slightly sidetracked by these stories, but I think they're good that we tell them. That once the Rebbe Rashab had sat down to a Suda with some important guests that had come to Lubavitch, and one of them was a big Rov, the other two were nonetheless also, from what I gather. So the Rebbe Rashab washed his hands with them, and then they said, and the Rebbe Rashab poured on each hand 3 times. So this Rav was attracted by that. His eyes caught it, because the Alter Rebbe says, even in the Siddur, the Alter Rebbe, in the Shan Atil Sayyatayim, that's enough twice. You pour twice on your hand. Yeah. And then you make the bracha. Here we saw the Rebbe Rashab poured 3 times. That's what we do nowadays. Pour 3 times. So after the Rebbe sat down, he made the Vayeitzei, and he felt it was a suitable moment. He sort of turned very respectfully to the Rebbe, and he asked him, "What's he 3 times? Why did you wash on each hand 3 times?" So the Rebbe Rashab went quiet for a minute, and then he said, I must admit to you that this very moment, I don't remember exactly why I do that. However, he said, since I do it, that's what he said. And when this Rav heard it, he mamish fainted. Yeah, he fell off the chair, because nobody around here falls off chairs, but he did. The Rebbe Rashab said to him, I can't remember right at this very moment what is the makor, but if I do it, then there must be a makor in Shulchan Aruch. He said, because my father taught me that I must train my body, and everything my body does is what's written in Shulchan Aruch. Or in great Mephosheh of Shulchan Aruch. So in his he just fainted, So he sort of realized that he had to do with somebody from another league altogether. So he never said anything more. And a few minutes later, about quarter of an hour, 20 minutes later, all of a sudden the Rebbe said, and he got up to Rebbe Rashab, and he went to where the Sforim were, and he bought a Gemara, a Masechta Chulin, and he opened it in the Rosh, in the Pirush Rosh on the Perek Shvi, on the 7th Perek, and there was a passage there from the Hagur Sashri. There are these little Hagurs inside the Rosh, and they're called the Hagur Sashri. Oh yeah, very famous, because they make all sorts of very amazing observations. Now, I'm not sure exactly who he was, but he was somebody very great. And he writes these Hagurs on the Rosh, and he brings down from other Rishonim and other shit. Many times he agrees with the Rosh. He's just showing other sources. Other times he differs, but he brings all these amazing sources to back him. So over there in Perek Shvi, there's a thing there in Perek Shvi, he deals with the laws of Malicha. So he writes over there, the Rosh writes that when you pour water to wash off the soap, then you should pour at least 3 times. Water on the so it comes on the Hagoah Sashri over there, and he writes an amazing thing. He says, from washing a piece of meat after salting, he jumps all the way over there. He says, you should pour on each hand 3 times. So when the Rav saw that, he jumped out and started. So I'm a Purisha Hagoah Sashri, but you gotta know that first of all you have to learn the Rosh, and if you learn the Rosh, you meet up with the Hagoah Sashri. So he took a look at that and he said, he realized he was another type of Kli. So the Rebbe Rashab said that's the Malchus. That's why he does it 3 times, because he saw it in Hagoah Sashri. And we do it nowadays, everybody, not because we saw it in Hagoah Sashri, but we understood from our teachers and our mashpiyim, that's the way you're supposed to do it. It's not written in the Alter Rebbe Siddur. Maybe nowadays in footnotes and that. It's brought down. But the Alter Rebbe writes in the Siddur that it's 2 times. We make 3 times for that reason. So we see that somebody who's really, a tzaddik, and somebody who's really in to Vayeitzei Hashem, his body is just a vehicle for his neshama. Whatever his neshama would want, his body just does automatically. So I was by the Rebbe told that mice. The Rebbe brought down that mice, for bringing. And the Rebbe said, "L'chora, a person can kind of, what do you want of him? He's not on this level." So the Rebbe said, however, the fact that story has been printed, it's printed, I think, in our Sikha in the Frierdiker Rebbe the first time. And that's been given over to all the Chassidim, has been made public, and is meant for people to learn it. It's a sign that we all have to, in some way, at least approximate. You have to train yourself to sort of be well trained. You're not all the time having to remember. You have to be already with the relationship here on the Shoma, and you go as like a Kli for the Shoma. Here we're talking about even more than a Kli. It's like just a direct expression. So that's what the Rebbe said. So that's the milah of passing away on the same day that you're born. The Dayev still fills up, and he es mispar yomecha amar ve'yofi. So that's milamayla. Hashem gives you every perfection of the ruchnias in the Gafne automatically. That's what the Rebbe has to say. So the Rebbe says that we're going to find this somewhere in the Parshas Shiur, because it comes out in Parshas Vayeitzei, and that's the Otzai, the Mamish. So the has to be written in the Parshas. So the Rebbe begins a whole amazing approach to the Parsha, and he begins by telling us that Vayeitzei Yaakov Yemi Be'er Shova Vayela Charona. That is the close Yerida of the Neshama of every year. Every year is how do you call it? He is in a Neshama L'mayla in Gan Eden Ha'elin or Gan Eden Ha'tachna Tzara Pachot V'Yevteh. He's in it, and he's got to come down into the world. Vayeitzei, he's got to go out from there. And Be'er Shova is Bina, according to the Rebbe. Also in certain Maimonics, sometimes it's written that it's Malchus. Of the Rebbe says outside of Yesatoi, Be'er Sheva is what we call Bina, because Sheva indicates the midas. Be'er Sheva is the source of the midas, and that's Bina. Yeah, of a Mela, you go out from Bina, how it is in Elam HaYetzirah, Elam HaBriya, and Vayeitzei. You got to leave that. You got to come all the way down, and you come down into the physical world. You go out into the desert or wherever it is outside, outside Beersheba, outside Bina or Malchus or both of them, and you go down. So the Rebbe said that would have been heavy enough. That would have been very severe. Although you got to go to Haran, and there's a lesson that Rashi brings earlier, not necessarily right here. Rashi brings that the word Haran is like the word for anger is sometimes called Harain up, and it could like the stirring up of the nose, and the people get angry. You're not supposed to get angry. Well, people who get angry, their nose fumes, Yeah, Haran of Shel Ulam, that Haran indicates how the world is like against Hashem. It's like it would normally make Hashem angry, but Hashem never gets angry. Maybe he does in some ways, but not in ways known to us. Anyway, whatever, he's got to go to Haran, which means that you don't only come down from Gan Eden into the world. That's what he called. That would be a peaches and cream deal. You have to come down into the world, and you got to go to Haran. And Haran is where Yaakov Avinu was very rightfully concerned about what's going to happen up there in Haran. And even where he was in the Midbar, he was also concerned about Chayos Rois, how they call them. And evil animals, that might get at him. And so he built this Malchus, Rashi brings it like a protection of stones around his head. And the Rabbi says, what's going to help him? This highest rose, or they come from the other side. It's all covered like, and they'll each jump from that side. So he brings out some of the great Meforshim that really Yaakov Avinu put stones around his whole body, everything. But around his head was a special arrangement. I'm not going to go into it, it's a whole slightly complex matter. But around his head was a special union of stones, and also around the rest of his body. So the Rabbi said, that's very good, but it doesn't really correct the situation, because Chayos Rois can usually jump. They're very, so if they wanted, they could jump over the whole thing, no matter how many of them you put around. And they could have got at Yaakov Avinu. Anyway, we have to say that Yaakov Avinu caused with these stones, and by putting them around him, he ensured that no Chayos Rois would get at him. We'll soon try briefly to understand what that is. Okay, anyway, that's amazing. So the Rebbe said that it's written Vayelech Harono. It's not written Vayelech Yankiv El Haron. It's written Vayelech Harono. Now Harono is a grammatic way of saying anyway El Haron, but you're putting a K on the word Haron at the end, and you're also putting a Hey at the beginning of it, isn't it? I'm sorry, no, only at the end. You have Vayelech Haron, only at the end. In some cases, it involves putting a Hey, B and on. And you add an extra Hey, and that means that he went to Haran. So the Rebbe says an amazing idea. He said, what's the difference? Why couldn't he have just said El Haran? So he said that if it would just say Yaakov went El Haron, or that would imply that Yaakov Avinu was one thing, and Haron was another thing. And Yaakov, he went over there, and he got there, and that was it. But he said this whole grammatical build of a hey at the end like that, well, that means that not just Yaakov went to Haran, but Yaakov Avinu entered Haran, and he and Haran sort of became one thing. Haran, he just went in to Haran, and he became Yaakov or Haran. You understand? So he and Haran become one thing, not El Haran. So the Rebbe said, what does that mean? He and Haran become one thing. And Yaakov Avinu was able to be poyel, that even a place like Haran, even a very, very, negative place like Haran, was able to become just an expression of what he really represents. Just that he took over Haran, not Haran affected him, or not he was, fighting Haran. They were two separate entities, but Haran, just as it were, became Yaakov Avinu. He took over Haran. And that's why we see what happened. He's got Lovan, Rami down, all the Torahs. Oh, we see Yaakov Avinu beat him. Sometimes in his own game, but he beat him. And it's put down, so that he caused a tremendous yichud Elyon Yaakov Avinu. In the Hemshchaim Beis, the Rabbi Rashab talks about Barichas, Gedela. Anyway, whatever. So the Rebbe said, what does that mean for you? You don't only come down in this world only to worry about yourself. However, you have to worry about yourself. You're not allowed to, neglect yourself. However, you came down into the world to fix up the world. Hashem didn't just bring you down to get you back into a nice Gan Eden or something. Hashem brought you down, but he wanted you to affect the world. He wants to make a deal of it, and he wants that you should make it. And so he could make it very easily. So he could make it, as the old saying in Israel, you will start deal of a make yourself a deal of a and it would be no problem for Hashem. He wants you to make the deal of it. So Yaakov Avinu, he's not only going out to Haran, he's got to affect Haran, and he's got to turn Haran into like he is. He's got to turn that everything in Haran will be like an expression of Hashem. And he said there's two ways you can do that. And he said one way is that you say, listen, everything is from Hashem, and there's the divine life force in everything. Reveal that divine life force, and people will be able to realize and see, feel, at least understand, Elokud. And so that's the sort of thing. It makes sense to a person, I think, even to somebody who's not necessarily in the Kedusha fully, that everything must live from something, and there must be a divine force. So you're talking about the divine force, and you bring it out and you reveal it all. So the Rebbe said, that's very good, and that's already entering Haran, and that's changing Haran. But he says, it's not the main thing. How you guys say, you have to realize that those are the Chabadske. The Chabadske crutches, no matter what you do, that's not enough. I mean, by the Rebbe, you can see it. You have to be absolutely a goylem, of the highest sort, of the lowest sort, not to see it. The Rebbe would come out and make a whole new mitzvah, a whole new thing, people got to turn themselves upside down, the whole world gets a revolution and everything. Next for bringing, the Rebbe's back. this is not enough yet. We have to make a new mitzvah. Everybody's doing. Oh, you can do the job. So that's exactly what Chassidus is all about. So Chassidus said, and that was wonderful, but that's not enough yet. So what is it that we're going to add here? What is like the ultimate? So very simple question, and that is that Yaakov Avinu, the whole 14 years, he was in Beis Shem Va'eva. Did he sleep, Yaakov Avinu? No. It's written, he didn't actually lay down. Yeah. I happened to be in, the sons, previous sons of Rabbi, the Kloisenberger. I happened to be in Kiryat Sanz, and I was close, not far from where his big house was. And I happened to meet up with one of the people who was like, his Meshamshim. And they told me that the majority of the time, he doesn't sleep in a bed. They don't even know exactly when he sleeps in a bed, but he's got a sort of an easy chair that folds back. So if he wants to just rest a little bit, he just sits in the easy chair. If he wants to slow a bit, he puts the gear back and it falls back a bit, but it's only an easy chair. They said that's the way he lives. So Yaakov, he never slept the whole time. So I asked the question, here you've got a person of 14 years, he never slept. He must be used to it, You don't sleep 14 years. He used to it, And then all of a sudden we see here, Vayishkav b'mokeh mahu, and we see Yaakov, all of a sudden laying down here, and he came, and where is it? It's the Mokeh Mamidos. So you might say, well, Yaakov didn't know right now, he only knew later. But just to say, he's a tzaddik, like we just said, he's an expression of Elokus. How come that he lays down and even to sloth, because he had a dream? It would appear that he sloth. After 14 years, he's never sloth. All of a sudden he's going to slow, and then right in the place where the meat is. So the Rabbi said, not only he's asking, he said, and numerous of the Mephoshim asked that question, what's he doing laying down, Yaakov? You follow? Anyway, I see everybody's very sort of, they always became of a very simple but very stirring question. So what does the Rabbi say? That was an absolutely amazing thing. He said, when you're standing, or even when you're sitting, you're sitting Balavatis, then it's recognizable that the Chelika Elyon is Taka Elyon, the head and even the midas and the lave and all that. That's on a higher level. The feet are down at the bottom. Even when you're sitting, it's like that. Your head's gone down a bit, but it's still above, physically above your legs, right? So he said, when you lay down, it's not like that. He said, when you lay down, it's all on the same level. And then, just by the way, there's a very long pillow that the Rebbe brings. Did Yaakov Avinu have a pillow? In other words, what sort of pillow? One of the stones. Some people say that he put his head on one of the stones. Others say that he didn't. It's all. It's written that he put stones round his head, or not under his head. So others say, no, we can prove that he must have put a stone on his head. It's a whole big pillow. So the Mainov community, so the Rebbe said, if you sleep with a pillow, then you're a little bit, sort of higher. But he said, nonetheless, you're not really higher. It's just for the sake of, surety that you will sleep. You put something under your head. Well, it doesn't really disturb the fact that you're all in one line. Yeah, the Rabbi goes into a whole little sub-tuble with the Rabbi about that. Yeah. So anyway, the Rabbi said, here you are, and you're all on one level, your head and your feet and everything, all on one level. So we could look at that in a negative way. And we could say you've taken your highest point and you've pushed it down onto a level with the lowest, What sort of a guy are you, Who are you? What are you, That's not good. So the Rebbe said, we can look at it another way. We can look at it, maybe there's come such an elevated, an unbelievable level has revealed itself that everything that you can possibly represent or everything you can present is just one line like every day. It's just so high that it just equalizes everything. Everything just becomes, so the Rebbe said, what would that indicate? Well, that would indicate not just high levels in Ruchnias, even Pnimius Akesa or something like that, but that would represent, I remember Rav Nochem used to say, that would represent Eralain, he himself. And said, who is he himself? So, the very essence of the Eberstein came into reveal. So Yaakov just went horizontal. The head and the feet, all horizontal. Anything he could produce just becomes ruled out in front of Tzemach, in front of. So he said, if you reach that level, then he said it's a different story altogether. Not only you're making the world into a kli to accept your neshama, and to a certain extent you're making your kli very, very vital to your neshama, but he said it becomes all one thing. They all lose their metzias, both the head and the body. Like Gabi something much higher. Gabi Atma Saint. And he said, yes, Shlomo, that's what Yaakov Avinu achieved. You follow? And that's why it's written by Yelech Charon. No, he took over the whole Charon. Yeah, the whole Charon was Malchus. Like have a human, he had a koyak Elyoin of Atma Saint. So the Rebbe said, now it makes sense. How come a person like Yaakov, he comes into, this fellow Lovan, and these people, the whole situation was very, very, very threatening. It was by no means, an easy borough, and Lovan, Lovan from Russian Loiven, Loiven, he's very, very high, Madrega, in the Shiur Klippah, and the Klippahs are key, Chazokis and all that. So the Rebbe said, if you got Atzma so back at you, that you're literally in the hands of the Tzemach, the Eibishter, nobody's going to get you. He said, not even the highest rise. And that's why Yaakov Avinu, he put the stones around his head. He turned the stones. Also, Rashi brings that the stones all got very happy. Another whole story. The stones had an argument, and they said, we want he should put his head near us or on us. That's where these other people bring a right that he put his head on the stone. Anyway, whatever. The stones had a whole argument, and in the end, they all became one stone. They all joined up. That would be very nice if that's what would happen today. If I know, all the stones would just join up. Fine. And that would be very good. But anyway, that's what happened. So therefore, the Rebbe says, Yaakov didn't have any more what to be frightened of, but because the stones were all backing him, said, this is literally Atma Saint so, So what are the Chayas going to do there? Even Chayas, the Rebbe said, they know when it's really Elikus turned on, then they know what's going on. And he said, Yossi Lovi, what's going to be Gilead Atzmas Bakolo Elam Bakolo Imame, and the Chayas are all going to get on one with the other, Yeah, and they're not going to do any harm anymore. But they're going to Misa. So that's Yaakov Avinu, he didn't have anything what to be afraid of. Yeah, therefore Yaakov Avinu comes here, he's got this love and he's got this one, he's like, my time. And Yaakov just walks, the love gets over and everything. In the meantime, Yaakov Avinu takes out all his torn, and he does all these amazing, as Fortan says, this Gilead Tzilas, but talk beyond, and then but Yaakov Avinu wasn't finished, and he says, I've done a lot of work and I've prepared my part of the world, even for the Gula Shlema. He said, I've always been my, how do they say, my brother, how do you call him, my brother, what's with him? They say so, he's still, got a big part of the world is walking around with him. We got to finish off the whole bureau, you understand? We could have, therefore, what did he do, Yaakov? He could have said, I've had this man, I got lots of saints over. I'm going home and I will live the rest of my koiches and time in Eretz HaKodesh, Eretz Yisrael. And I'll be marvel, I'll set up a base medrash by Shem Ba'eva, and I'll hit the world, Well, he didn't do that. Yaakov Avinu didn't even reach yet Eretz Yisrael, and he sent all the Malachim to Esau. The Esau answers him, sorry, old man, I'm smoking a cigar, I'm having a good time. You'll be working harder, but me not, So what did he do, Yaakov Avinu? He should have said, well, listen, this is a pretty hopeless game. Yes. So what did he do? He sends Malachim to Esau. He starts looking for a way to be Mavara Esau. So Esau says, I'm not having anything right now. So Yaakov Avinu says, maybe you're not. But when Mashiach comes down, I'm going to come over to you, old boy. I'm going to finish you off. That's what Rashi brings. He says, Yaakov Avinu said to him, maybe not now. Over the Yossi, all of Moshiach, Baha. I'm going to come down and then we'll see, who's running the whole show, So had he caught him, Yaakov Avinu didn't finish completely with Esau, but he put him, out of the dangerous action, for the time being. And he was very careful, Yaakov Avinu. Esau said, oh, come with me and we'll go together, We'll be Balbatisha comrades, So Yaakov Avinu said, I got a big family, I got all the kids and everything. And, Yaakov Avinu dried out for him. And he kept his hands up. But Esau in the meantime was, out of it. Finished for the time being. So that's basically the picture. So you should realize, I'm sorry, the last couple of weeks I haven't learned much inside. I hope everybody's not angry, but...
Are you kidding? This is better than inside. We're getting stuff
later, when you go home, you'll be... there's an old saying in English, sort it out when you get home. Right now you're busy. When you get time, you'll sort it all out. And you'll be able to read it inside. So... I was once by the river. Pillar diggers, the river said that the whole trouble is that nowadays Esau is not the Esau he used to be. The river said before, he's no longer the Esau he used to be. And he wants to hear, Esau wants to hear what is the truth. He wants you to tell him what is the absolute truth. If you, Yaakov, will tell him the absolute truth, not like then when he'll say, I'm still smoking my cigar and I've got no time for you. He's not going to say that. He said, you just told me how and what to do it. I will do it, and I will cooperate. Yeah, that's what I want. So the Rabbi said, what's the difference from that Esav is Esav? He said that Yidden have been learning Torah in Esav's, how do you call it, areas, in these countries and these different places, and they've been learning Torah be a year. They've been learning very hard and sweating. Well, that has affected Esau. And over the years, instead of waiting for him to wake up what he's supposed to get done, the Eden have done it for him. And they have purified Esau. Yeah, that's what the Rebbe said. And the Rebbe said, nowadays, he's not the same Esau. That's what he says in the Sikha. He's no longer the same Esau. He's sorry, if you will tell him the right thing, and you will say to him what he really knows, he's not a fool, then he will do it, and he will assist, and he will want to carry out what is the the whole trouble is that they don't tell him the truth, and they don't come to him with a toiker. He's a toikev guy, He wants, you got to talk to him tough. You got to tell him, not insult him, but you got to tell him strong. What is the matter? Right. There I am. So the Rebbe said the whole trouble is that they keep saying to him, we're ready and we will give up, we won't, we this. The Rebbe said he doesn't know what the heck with these sitting, what's going on with them. Yes? So they don't want, why should I want? But if you tell him the truth and you tell him what you demand, mitzad that truth, he will say, Hineni, here I am. And look at what's happening today. This is me for the Hagur. This is a Hagur. Oh, just look at what's happening today. This fellow in America, he's from Azor. His mom is from Azor. Oh, but first of all, he's got some sort of a shayas with his daughter. They're like, she's a girl. That's Allah and Beis. He is ready. He's a very upright individual, and he doesn't like violence and things like that. And he says quite openly, he would like to help. So what he could do, cash in on that, come over and say, listen, man, and it's happening a little bit, but not the way it should be. But who knows what's going to happen? Maybe this whole terrible mess that we're going through at the moment is just to produce a situation where he will have no brainer and he will have to, and the Rebbe said that it could be before Moshiach comes that the Ummah will have to hold. That's what the Rebbe said, that the Ummah, especially America, they will have to help. They will have to, because over here they're going to be so move over. Yeah, that's it. I heard it from the Rebbe way back. Yeah, the boys. Mufurish Yotzim, Mipi Koche. Oh, Mele, Kotes. It's all there. So the Rebbe said, oh, that's the Indian. Why the Mittler Rebbe, everything he did was just an expression of Atmosata. He said, when the Mittler Rebbe went to prison, how did he get out? He persuaded him, according to Chassidus, that they have to let him out. The whole story, maybe I'll mention it later by the little piece of the Parang we had. Yeah, but everything was mitzad ha'elakus. That's the way it's supposed to be. So since that's how it's supposed to be, that's what happened. So the Rebbe said, that's why it is the Mittler Rebbe. He passed away on the same day that he was born, and the Avish to fulfilled and made everything a round number, a perfect number. Because the Mittler Rebbe reached a situation where everything was only Elkus, Mames. Ishko, it was all like Shchiva, Mamalius, it's all one level, it's all just it's that way, everything makes sense, everything fits in. Everything just fits into the right place. And you should realize that just by the way, once again, this is just a go from me. It's not written in the sea. But there's a story that when they took the middle of Rabbi from Lubavitch, they still wanted it to be covered, because the whole thing was a bluff from certain members of the family that they were jealous of the middle of Rabbi. The whole thing was just a terrible frame-up, And the high windows, they knew that, some of them at least. They realized that. Therefore, they didn't want that anything should go wrong. If something would blow, and it would all be revealed that the whole thing, it would affect very badly on their ability to run the country. So they would be in big trouble. So therefore, they wanted everything should be very. So when they took the middle of Rebbe from Lubavitch, it was because COVID. It's only when they got to a place called Dvar, it was a little village on the way. In the meantime, all these Rishoyim had said to them, "What are you doing? He's a criminal, and how come you're treating him?" So instead of putting the middle of Rebbe where they intended putting him, they wanted to put him in a nice place, like a hotel or something like that. They put him inside a door. He had a post office building, and it was all drafty. The door didn't close properly, and cold winds. And in the middle of it, he got sick, unfortunately. He was so delicate that he got ill. So the whole thing at the beginning, they wanted to treat the middle of the river the way he is. Really, So what happened was they started traveling from Lubavitch, and there was a big lot of people were attracted by this, great road that he's traveling in. And they all came out. So they get to a Goisha area where all these Goyim are, and they have a custom that if somebody very great comes into their area, or somebody important, then they bring bread and water. That's a big kavod. They bake up a special big loaf, and water and a bit of salt. And they bring that like a big kavod. So without the middle of Rabbi saying it, what did he was middle of is inside the coach, the Chassidim, all on horses, they're accompanying him. All these big elders of the Goyim also come out with, they all got tens of them with these big plates, with lechem, and they want to give it to the rabbiner, they want to give it, and nobody told them, and nobody said anything. No, the middle Rebbe, he was just Gila Elakus, because he was Atzma Saint Sof, in one level, and it just shined everywhere. and these Rishoyim, they got word of that, and they realized that was the truth. So they did everything they could to stop it. So in the end, they made what they thought was a compromise, and they stuck the middle Rebbe inside this, post office. That's where he got ill. Unfortunately, there was a big draft that blew through the cracks in the wall and under the door, and there he got very sick. And it appears that that's what eventually, after about a year or so, he passed away from that. Yeah. But in the meantime, there was a big, sort of comeback, but then he had a relapse and never really sold. But anyway, we see this whole amazing picture. And the Rebbe and his unbelievable Gionas, the Rebbe connects it all together, he links it up. And the Rebbe brings it down to our day, and he said that everything is ready. That's what the Rebbe said. And he said, you've got to open your eyes. That's probably one of the early times that the Rebbe came, because then he repeated it a lot. But here the Rebbe comes out with it, and he said, all you got to do is just open your eyes and you'll see that's like that. He said, the reason that you don't run around cocking it, because your eyes are not properly open. So he said, how do you open your eyes? He said, you have to learn a lot of chesed. Because the Mitzvah Rabbi, Tzemach Tzedek said about him, that if you'd cut his finger, it would run out a mamach chesed. Wouldn't go any blood at all. His whole chayes was only a chesed. So the Rabbi said he doesn't suspect it if they cut your finger, a mamach chesed is going to run out. But he said you have to get into a situation where you're cooking and your whole life force is in chesed. You live with the chesed. He said that's what you got to do. Then your eyes will open. Oh, that's what the Rabbi said. The reason your eyes are not open properly is because, you're still, you're a bit bad about this, If you really get into this, Vayishkav, Malchus, lying down, everything makes sense. That's what the Rabbi said. So the Rabbi said, what have you got to do? You got to make sure to learn, and you got to learn the middle of it. And he said, not enough to learn, you got to make up for brain. So that's why when Ariel Gorstein, he came up to me today and he said, listen, would you like to come for bring on my Shabbat? So normally I would have answered no. For some reason on my Shabbat I'm very tired. I have to take it, watch carefully what I'm doing. Then all of a sudden I remember what so I said, pays Hashem, Hashem should hold me with, for what? That's what the Rabbi said. You got to learn a lot of chassidus, partly the middle rabbis, any chassidus is good. And he said, you got to make it for bringing, and you got to be levadik. He said, if you do all this, then you're going to be dancing, taking me out with Rabbi Melech Mashiach, or Chapanim, and the Gula Mitzvah, Vashlema, and the Rabbi were always together. They're going to be Megala Atzmasein, so into the very makeup of the earth of the world. Not just it'll be Megala in the world, it'll take over the whole. And that's why the Rambam finishes the whole work, his whole huge work. Yeah, how's it written? Kamayim, what's else supposed you go? Huh? Kamayim Layam, Umola Ha'orez, that's it. Umola Ha'orez, Daya Es Hashem, Kamayim Layam Mechazim. So the Rebbe says, what's it? Umola Ha'orez Daya. Umola Anashiv Daya, what's it? Umola Ha'orez? Even the Orez, the Kashmir, it's going to say, Eliku. Why? Because Vayishkav, Asma Saint, so it's going to be killing. And that's what's written in the Novi, Even Mikir Tizov, that even the stones of the wall are going to cry out. Oh. So what are they crying out? We want Moshe. Have a good evening, gentlemen.
Amen.
You should realize
The hexagon,
people don't know what's
I'd like to know if it's suitable. Let me know, please.
People don't realize. They don't know.
Wow.
I sit down to prepare this in my eyes and sort of jaw the out.
It's not wet? When you cut the milk, tear them open, it's not wet? I
uh,
haven't touched my eyes in there, never. I'm doing this. Is this the same as these? You want me to take this? Amazing. Thank you, Mendel. Yeah. Good to your side. And the Rabbi? Sweet Rabbi Malchus. Coming in Tsfat. My way is coming every day. Fine, Rafa. Amen.
Thank you, Yago. Chana Bracha. Hey, Adonai, Marina, Rabbeinu, Melech HaMashiach, Le'olam Va'ed.
Amen.
So it's a dover makubal, a dover borough that anything our Rabbeim said, no matter in what circumstances or whatever, anything they said was never just a joke or a sort of humorous observation or something. Everything they said had a real implication to it. And there was once a miser I heard it personally from Rabbi Khan. And he was once chosen to go with the Rabbi Rashab to a certain meeting, and he had to sort of be Mashamesh, Rabbi Rashab. And the Rabbi Rashab made what looked like a humorous sort of quip at one of the people, and several people smiled, and I thought, that was a good quip, So when he got back to Lubavitch, and Rabbi Rashab's mother, the Rebbetzin Rivka, she asked him, what happened? Well, give me some of the details as to what went on. He sort of mentioned Derech in a way to make her smile. He said, by the way, he said, the Rebbe said, kaf for kaf, in the form of like. So she said, oh, you must realize that my son does not ever say a joke. It may come in the labush or what looks like a humor. He said, but he never says anything which does not have a deep and profound meaning when you get to the situation. So when the Tzedek said that if you would cut the vein at the Mittler Rebbe, they would only go out chassidus, that sort of was sort of quip with a bit of your tongue in the cheek to indicate how great the Mittler Rebbe was, how involved he was in the study and the spreading of chassidus. We have to realize that is mamish kamoishahu. Yehuda, what's with you, man? So that means that mamish zakah. If you were cut the finger of the Tzedek, then of the Midler River would only go out among Tzedek. So when they took the Midler River, ultimately, when they took the Midler River ultimately to where he wasn't in a prison, that he was kept in what they call house arrest. It was like in a sort of a building, like a resident building. But he was under very heavy guard, and he was more or less on his own. But the situation was like not like in a prison, you know. So after the middle of being there a day or so, his health began to deteriorate. He was very delicate anyway, like I pointed out before. So his health began to deteriorate, and he could see he wasn't feeling well. So as I pointed out, the captors, they were very anxious that the whole thing should go over smoothly, that there shouldn't be any. And the best that could happen for them was he would be accused, he would be punished whatever way they would decide. But that if anything happened to him before the so-called trial and everything, that would reflect badly on them, you understand? And then it might bring to an inquiry into the whole thing, what was going on around here, and where it all started. And so they, on the one hand, they were anxious, yeah, that nothing untoward should happen. So when they saw the middle of the river is not feeling well, they were anxious, you know. So they called in a doctor, and he wasn't just a doctor, he was a leading doctor. So he comes in, he examines the middle of Rabbi, and he says the middle of Rabbi's got a very serious chill. You know, he's got a serious cold. It's affecting his whole system. We have to give him this and this, and buy these and these combinations, and you must give him hot things to drink, you know, and hopefully it'll be okay. So it goes through a day or two, and it wasn't only it wasn't okay, but he was feeling even worse a bit later. So they, you know, they're getting really anxious. So they called in some big professor, and he didn't say all much different than what the first doctor said. He just recommended some, you know, they should go to the apotheke, what they call apotheke, to the pharmacy, and they should get a combination, a stronger and a different, and a bit more of a longish, you know, medicinal combination. So anyhow, goes through another day, no change in the middle of it. So they're getting really anxious, and you know, middle of his ability to function is dropping and everything. And he spends a lot of time davening, so they can't always just feed him when they want, you know. So they decided that they would call in a Jewish doctor. And maybe a Yid would, you know, he might have, and that was a good thought on their part. Maybe a Yid would be able to sort of help what is the story here, you know, what's going on. So they called in, and so happens that this person, he was, somehow or another, he was familiar with the Rebbe. He knew the Alter Rebbe. He knew, you know, what goes on. So he comes in, he examines the middle Rebbe, and he says he wants to give his maskonas, you know, to the. So he talks to the chief general or whoever it is, and he says to him, "Listen," he said, "you guys have got it wrong. You know, your whole approach is wrong." He said, "This guy," he said, "he's not like other people in the club." So he said, the whole thing that he is missing is causing him so much falling of his health. He usually gives over these troshim, you know, he gives over these, what he calls maimorim, you know, he gives them over. And he gives them over regularly, you know, and it takes him time, and he really gets involved, and it's very important to him, and it's very important to the Chassidim. But you'll see that if you let him do that, they didn't want to let him do that. That was against their whole. And so they said, but you know, this is like we're giving in to him, we're the captors, not him, So the doctor said to him, listen, you call me in case you wanted my opinion. If you don't want my opinion, then go ahead. But I'm telling you, he's going to get a lot worse. But what you got to do is, as soon as you can arrange it, you got to get 10 of his followers and bring them in. At the beginning, it could be just 10. It's got to be a Jewish minion, and tell him that he's free to say what he usually does. So Kachoya, they brought in a minion, and the middle of it, Kitahu said a man, but it wasn't just 10 minutes, quarter of an hour, it was long. And so they're worried he's going to be fainting, and when he's finished this, he's going to just collapse on the floor. And yet when he finished, the miner, they see in the middle of the river, he looked a bit sort of more, fresh and more sort of adequate. Takeoff, So they said, let's ask him if he wants more, So the middle of the river said, it's already late in the week. It was already Erev Shabbos. So he said, I want to have, for Shabbos. And he said, I want Friday night. And then sort of Shlishiyah, I want to be able to say, but I also want that we should be able to pray together. I want these guys to be around. And, this is not exactly what they, were foreseeing, but they said, it seems to be working. So, let's play along. So the middle of Rabbi, he said on Friday night, a big mama, whatever, it was talking around about this Parshas. It was around about Parshas Vayeitzei. He said, big mama, and then he had a suda with the guys together. And the guards who were hanging around, they saw, he looked a different sort of a man. They looked a different person. And so Shabbos in the afternoon, so they see, he's a different person altogether, So it became, until they actually freed the mitzvah Rebbe, it was a Dover Kavua that twice a week, plus Shabbos, he had, Siddim came in and he gave over Siddim, and he got over the worst symptoms that he had. Unfortunately, there was a whole thing, he caught another chill, but that was a separate thing, and that sort of linked up with this chill that he had already, and there was like complication, and that's what later led to these talks. Over here, on the spot, he got a lot better. So here we see that his life force and his blood force was stuck in the Chassadas, you follow? In other words, had you cut his finger, it would have gone out. And so we see that when the Tzedek said that, he meant it. It wasn't just a quip or a nice, humorous exaggeration for the sake of the record, but it was Gafne. So what does it come to teach us? What can we learn from that? What can we got to take something home, we got to go. So the word is, I don't know if you're going to reach a level where if they cut your finger, it's only going to go out. I don't know if you're going to reach that. But what you have to reach is that you have a highest incident. And Chassidus becomes your highest. And we're learning to have, when it comes to the Iron Base here now, we're learning right now on Iron Base that by an ordinary person, one of the emes revelations of the Yechida Shebanefesh is that when he hears a Dvar Torah, Befrat in Pnimis Torah, even if he's not a Goyz of Bel Madrega, but he will be drawn very, very, and he'll want to hear, and he'll koksa b'shas ma'aseh. You say, when I'm in, do I have a kasha, or repeat it, I want to get that clear. And he said, but the highest God. So the Rabbi said, where does that highest come from? Or does it, Chassidus stirs up a few of the Yechida Shevanefet, and that's the emes of Oineg. Yechida is connected with Oineg. So he becomes Levite, which means that what's running in his system at that moment is the Chassidus. And therefore he's very taken by it. Yeah. You see, even by his tummy, you say a Dvar toilet, people listen, they want to hear. You come with the latest baloney from the latest, loved up here. But if you say a Gishmach Dvar Torah, you got an audience, people want to hear. But what? But that's okay to the Etzem Chayes. Yeah. That's the way we have to train ourselves to be, in a way, of citizens, emes of life, emes. And that's Nageya to our health. And that's what happened with the Mittler Rabbi. And in the end, I just want to finish. Unfortunately, I'm a bit against my own principle. I'm feeling a little bit not so well. However, how did the Mittler Rabbi ultimately, how did he actually persuade them? Because they didn't really have a case. The whole thing was a terrible frame-up. So the area where Lubavitch and Vitebsk and all those places was under the leadership of a big general. And that's where they used to run Russia in those days. It was like divided into provinces. And each province was under a big like military general, and this military general, he had koyach afilo chas v'sholem of life and death. He could even, he had very high powers, and he ran, and he was like directly responsible to the Tsar. He was like the Bokeh of the Tsar. Lahavdil, it's a bit like in England and other places in Europe in the Middle Ages, that they had all these barons, they used to have a huge center, and they ran big parts of the country, and they had only the king over them, apart from that, they could just do anything they wanted, you understand? And that's, and in Russia, what they called the Paritzim were like a brand of that type of thing. So these governors, these generals, they were military men, they were like that. And the one in charge of the whole area, where Lubavitch and also where the Mittler was in prison, was a big general of the army, and he was a big, how do you call it, he had a chumistic kop, how do you call it, a big, it was a big, to use the expression, a grove goy, so what does he know, what's that? So you know what happened? The Mittler Rebbe wrote a treatise, which he said he once given to the general. And there's a sefer called Bad Kodesh. You ever heard of the sefer Bad Kodesh? Yeah. Oh, gosh. Part of the library of Lubavitch says that it includes a sefer called Bad Kodesh. And what is this Bad Kodesh? It's a translation into Lashon Kodesh of what the Mittler Rebbe wrote to this general. What did he write him? He wrote him a whole beer of Kabbalah and said why he has to free him. That's all. And he starts off the Mittler Rebbe about Malchus and Spheres of Malchus, and he tells him about the 10 Spheres, and it's all amazing. And he's got a diagram, or 2 diagrams, with the Esther Spheres and everything. And it's all written very exactly and so pretty, but it's all Chassidus. It's part of the library of Kahos, Bad Kodesh. I've got it down. It's an amazing thing. That's what the Mittler Rebbe wrote to this. So he would say, what's this guy? He doesn't have the faintest idea, what you talk to about. What's it going to help you? So what happened was that he got it, And so it wasn't matim for him to say, listen, I can't read this, I don't understand it. Just a lot of rubbish, take it away. Well, that's not matim, you understand? This is a leading person, he's imprisoned under him. And he's written, obviously, what is a very, worked out defense of his. So he's got to be able to say that he can read it, he can appreciate it. Otherwise, he's like admitting that he's just a goylon. That's not what he wanted. So he said, of course, he accepts it. He just asked. The Mittler Rebbe wrote it in Lashon Kodesh. Yeah, he wrote it in Lashon Kodesh. The general answer has to be translated into Russian. Yeah. Otherwise, he's not going to be able to understand it. By the Alter Rebbe, the translation was visible with terrible sorrows. Over here, it was Hatfila. Here, the Chassidim brought in a very learned person, a very good translator, and he translated it all straight from Lashon Kodesh into Russian, and it went straight from his table into the hands of the general. And so they left him with it, for a day or so, and he read it, and he was just tremendously impressed. He was just absolutely out of his kalim, because the Mittler Rebbe writes there that you are like the Spirit of Tzemach, and you represent the king, and the king has to do justice, the whole of a king, and he's a righteous person, and he has to rule the country with mishpat, and you are his representative, so you've got to be full of justice and mishpat. And he gives him a tremendous build-up, but it's all helping sinners, and it's all this wondrous view, what is Spirit of Tzemach, how everything is dependent in Spirit of Tzemach, everything, all eyes are only on you, it's amazing. It's really plus. It's a whole, small sefer. It's about 20 pages. It's a very, very, very long and learned document. But he read it, he said, he said, this is what he's been waiting for all these years, this is absolutely something. And immediately at that moment, the Mittler Rebbe's daughters, the Mittler Rebbe had daughters, he had married daughters, they had been weeping to other members of the, like the entourage of this general, and they came and said, our fathers, the whole thing is a frame up, and everything. And they wept, not that they were putting it on, they wept, they said, this is all terribly, unfair. So some of these guys, at the time that he's reading this, they come in, they said to the general, listen, this Rabbiner, he's got these daughters, and they want to speak with you, you have to, you can't get out of this, you have to speak to them, they're very powerful, So the guy said, just wait, am I going to finish a chapter here, and he's showing how he's really into it. And he put it in the middle of his daughters coming, and they couldn't hold themselves. They started weeping, and he was tremendously moved, tremendously affected by these ladies, and they're weeping for their father's defense, And so, what was this? Then he sees the middle of his daughters, and then he read another few lines of the middle of his sefer, for him. And all of a sudden he said, finish. This is the end. We have to let him out. This is it. No more am I going to listen to anything. He said, this is a holy man, and we've got to let him out. We can't keep him anymore in prison. And it's all a frame up. It's all, And so it took a long time, but later they tried to get at these people who had actually framed up the Mittler Rebbe. And I'm not sure, it's somehow or another, it didn't work. They fled or they got away. They managed to, avoid it. But even the Tsar himself, he said that they should go after them and try and get them. even the Tsar of the general, he said to the Tsar, we can't have this anymore. We can't keep this man. He was so affected by this. So you have to remember, this is a guy, a Rosh Hashanah, who's been in the military all his years. You can just imagine what sort of a head he had. I mean, not I'm saying anything about any creature that Hashem created, but yet nonetheless he reached his savor in the middle of everything. He just, he goes out of his cave and says, this is it, So we see what it means to have a real highest, and so that if you really have a highest, you affect everything around you. And that was Yaakov, that's what the Rebbe says in this. Yaakov Avinu came out to Haran because he had been spoiled by himself, that the Elikos and the body were all just one entity. Everything just, Lovan had the problem, not him. Lovan thought he's got him, but there never says that he had Lovan. He had him. And not only he had Lovan, but all the Birurim and all the riches and all, it all came out with that wrong way. What did they say? Kol asher lo vino. He's taken everything that belongs to our Father. Well, that's what happens. The whole world is straight to here. It all goes over to the Tzedek. That's what it means. That's what the Rebbe, the Tzedek, that's what he meant when he said, if you would have cut my finger, would have gone out. That's what he meant. It was all just, one atom, one essence of godliness. So it just affected. It just had its effect. And that was all high, and that just went over. And even the general, he was affected. Swept away. No. So that's what the Rebbe means in this. So it's pretty amazing. So what does it mean to us? If we will have a chok in us, we'll really live, we'll really live on it, everything will fit in, one way or another. And really, you must never say, what can I do? I'm just a little nobody. Nobody's going to ask me. Nobody's going to ask, but you can have an effect. They're not going to come asking you because that's good of them. But you can have an affair. You can drain the whole thing around by having a chayas like that instead of, and living in a way that your ruchnias and your gashmias are all one partnership. Which means that the Elikos is your life force. It's not as far away as what it sounds.
How do you make it close?
Yeah.
How do you do such a thing? How can you make
Ki korab elecha hadova ma'id. Very clever.
Let's finish it.
Everybody. I'm telling you, we don't realize ourselves what we got. I remember Rabbi used to say, Rabbi Goldschmidt always son, he used to say, when we wollten no wissen, what it says, wollten wir euch sein in ganzen anderes, we would look completely different than what we look. We don't realize what we got. He said, "Wir wissen allein nicht, was haben wir? What do we got?" He said, "We yourselves don't know." Comes along a singer like this with the Rabbi, and reveals to you what you got. Wow. The time, guys.
I'm a Rabbi.
It goes from as Mizpah, Yomecha Amalei, and then it moves into Geula. Geula comes right after. We should all be together in the Emerson Gul. Hashem. It's just moved from the unbelievable slowness of his Mizpah. Right into the Gul. Everything just fell away and they freed them for COVID got them, you understand? They sort of sent him out the back door. Sent him away when COVID got him. Yeah. And Hashem said, oh, as KT alone, the goddess should send us out for COVID got him.
Amen.
Into the base of Midas Ashlisi. Yeah, Bez Hashem. Simcha Seino.
Amen.
Good.